Now, a lot of people, when they come to an exhibition, the better the exhibition is designed and laid out, the less they notice it. But this particular one, which is well designed and well received, has gotten a lot of people really notice it. Now, what were some of the special considerations for this exhibition?
The special consideration is that you have, at least this is what I try to achieve, is that people feel that they are in another environment. They are also in the church because there is a dialogue between the church and the Islam. That's why I was using this lattice work, so that you have absolute transparency between what you are looking at and where you are, so that you are all the time conscious of it, what you are doing. So I try with all my exhibitions, especially for the Nieuwe Kerk, where they are doing different cultures and different religions, that people feel that they have been there. So the environment and the colors and also the spatial design is very important.
Now, when we talked with John Fries, the curator here, he pointed out that it was specifically designed to go from, as you come into the garden here, and then you go from the pilgrimage and so on and so forth. When you do a design, do you work with a curator to come up with the concept, or how does that operate?
Well, in this case with John Fries, we made a lot of exhibitions together, Catherine the Great, together with the Hermitage, the Black Pharaohs. We did a lot of exhibitions together, and it is wonderful working with him, as he always has a certain dream and he is always laughing. And very often I ask him, well, John, do you really want to have a garden with fountains? And he said, absolutely, for this show. And we have to have birds and we have to have all this. And I said, is it real? And he said, yes, it's real. You are going to do it for me. And that is very nice to do it. So we were, especially for this exhibition, having a walk. So we had a warming up for this introduction space where we are standing in front, so that people get the masterpieces. And when you are walking through the exhibition, you are changing all the way the atmosphere of the exhibition by walking, as you said, from the mosque to the inscriptions, to the palace, to the gardens of the paradise, to the jewelry, I mean, which is the end of the exhibition. You discuss it, of course, together, and only at the moment when it is already done, then people realize what was it all about.
For instance, the exhibition, the Islam exhibition, it's an old idea which we had. We thought it was important that in Dutch society people become a little bit more aware of the richness of Islamic culture. It was something, by the way, which our own curiosity as to that culture is also very great. So we thought it was a nice idea to delve into that, realizing and thinking of and hoping that our public would be interested in that in such a subject as well. And that idea was born perhaps 5, 6, 7 years ago. We toyed with that idea, and gradually it builds up. We invited Professor Petrovsky from the Hermitage to be our guest curator, and the exhibition grows and grows and grows. And at a certain stage, it's also you have the collection, but it's of course extremely important that the collection, what you present, is for the ideas of what you want to present, but also the objects that you take up contact with an exhibition designer to sort of work that out together, because it's something which the museum, the curator, the person who's putting the exhibition together, does together with the designer. Those are two various tasks which are intricately involved with each other.
Now, you're working in a very special area because you're working in a 17th century Dutch Calvinist church that is very prominent here, and you're presenting an Islamic exhibition. Was this a problem, and how did you decide to overcome or integrate those two separate elements?
Well, it's one of the aspects of the Nieuwe Kerk. It is indeed a 17th century building. It's an architecture which is there. I mean, that is really, you have to respect that architecture. And from the very beginning, since we made exhibitions here, we've tried to let that architecture respect it and let it be one of the prominent features of the way everything is presented here. Our experience is that the best way of presenting exhibitions is to have the design of the exhibition be in dialogue with the architecture. So not to sort of deny the beauty of the building, however present that building is, however, the Gothic architecture you cannot think is the way, but to make a design which sort of plays with that, you know, and responds to that in a certain sense. Islam and Christianity, of course, are two somewhat related, but in other respects, very, very different sort of religions. When I invited Jowa to do the design of the exhibition, I specifically asked him to achieve a good dialogue between the architecture, the Islamic architecture, which I wanted to have is sort of an Islamic character, and the Gothic, more Christian character of the architecture of the building.
So here we are across the way and down at the Amsterdam Historical Society, and it's an altogether different consideration here, isn't it? This is an exhibition that is permanently on display. So what are the different considerations?
As I mentioned it already in the Nieuwe Kerk, this permanent exhibition is planned to stay here for at least about 10 to 15 years. So it has also to give the possibility to the curators that they can change the subjects in the exhibition without making a completely new design to it. So what we try to do with the design of this exhibition, that we had a special design of showcases and partitions, and the whole creation was done so that you could change the content of the exhibition very easily. You see behind us a very nice idea of having the different immigrants coming to Amsterdam, and we were creating for them a little showcase, and also that you can pick up a receiver and you can hear their personal stories, what was bringing them into this international city. And don't forget that about 50% of the population of Amsterdam are not real natives who were born here or who are coming from Amsterdam. And I think that it was a very thankful job to do something that you know that they were going to change it and they can use it for other shows too.
Now, I've noticed in the new exhibitions that you've created here, there's a lot more interactive kind of consideration where people can pick, as you say, the phones up, hear the stories. But there's more than that. Was this a special consideration with the new Amsterdam Historical Society?
Yes, absolutely. It was very important to integrate the new audiovisual and interactive media in this exhibition, for which we also had to design special furniture. People love it that they can zoom into the parts of the city, or that they can find out what is what, and it is not only for children. Adult people, they also like it very much, just to sit in front of one of these interactive monitors and trying to get their story, what they want to know about the town.
Now, my experience here in the Amsterdam Historical Society is that the building While it's interesting, it's often very difficult to find your way around in. Did you have any special considerations there?
Yes, absolutely. We had designed a special graphic design for finding your way in the museum, as it was almost impossible to find your way in this building, and we were working very hard on it so that to make the people easier to find their way. And especially what we also did here, it was to create a new opening till the roof, so that, and we are bringing daylight in, so that you have always the feeling and you know where you are. The orientation is now much better.
Wim, could you tell me, we're here in the newly redesigned Amsterdam Historical Society. There must have been a lot of considerations when you started out on this project to redesign your museum. What were some of the beginning considerations that you were looking for in making this a new museum?
Well, when it comes to design, one of the major things was that we wanted to have some kind of flexibility, because we planned to make a new historical museum that you could change in the coming years. We didn't want to make a permanent exhibition for 15 years, although some parts of it will stay for quite a long time. So for the designer, it was very important to design things that you could easily take away and put in another place. And in this room, for example, well, you can imagine that you can take everything from the walls and put it back. Well, that's in every museum, but our museum is always very difficult because we have all kinds of media, like objects, paintings, photographs, big things like this, movies, so it makes it a bit more difficult. And the building we are standing here, the old orphanage, is a very difficult building, so you have to put all kinds of things inside of it. This is an attic, so you can imagine that you had all kinds of difficulties with making something which looks good and it's also flexible. Well, that was the main thing, flexibility.
And when you first start talking about renovation and change, you get with you designate someone that's going to design it for you. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you first talk with him about?
Well, actually, the first things we talk about is the content, mainly. Normally we take some time to speak about what's it about. That takes quite some time. And at the same time you think about what will be on show. Because sometimes objects which are big or small, they dictate how the designer has to work, because he has to design some place where it fit in. But at the same time the designer thinks with you, and sometimes you think of some kind of route through the museum, and 6 months later, after all these sessions, the route is all the other way around. So this is always a very exciting moment in thinking about an exhibition, and there must be some kind of synergy between the makers of the exhibition and the designer of the exhibition. Well, and you have to judge yourself if it's okay or not. When we started, we knew that there wouldn't be only classical objects, but there would always be all kinds of television screens and computers and other kinds of media. So the designer had to think about all these kind of things, that you should put them in. And also we had to think about all kinds of gimmicks, like this Witcar here, in which you can sit and there will be a film on front of it. And these things progress. It's not something you just think of in one afternoon. You have all these ideas, but it takes some months, even a year, to design all these things. And then another thing was that there should be a lot of image, not like the thing behind you, photographs. There should be places where there is enough space to make some kind of gesture. Well, that's probably the main thing, and of course the normal ideas about showcases and things which you always have to think about. You have to put things inside of it. You have to have access to it. Well, the building was originally an orphanage, but since 1975 there is the historical museum here on this spot. So the old building has been changed into a museum for 25 years ago. But of course this is a difficulty, because if you strip it, yes, you have this old building, and like here you have an attic, or downstairs you have these long rooms, and especially for the 20th century history, it can look odd, a place like that. So you have to invent things that makes it more modern in a sense, and you have to find places where you can combine the building with the new one, because you cannot change the whole building. So that makes it an exhibition that has its own charm, because it's not a modern building. And if you look outside, you will see the 18th century courtyard. Well, that's also a difficulty for the designer, to find his way in the building, which is not easy.
Well, Wim, thank you very much for telling us about the design elements of the new museum. I think it works wonderfully.
Okay, thank you.